Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling a biggie. What does it really mean to be good? Not just, surface level good, but the kind of good that resonates deep down and inspires real change. We're digging into a powerful sermon by Elder Marion D called What Manner of Men As I Am. He gave this back in April of 73, but honestly, the message is as relevant now as ever. Elder Hanks was a remarkable leader, someone who truly walked the walk, and in this sermon, he dives into the heart of Christian discipleship.
And it's not just for the religious folks out there. This is about becoming the best versions of ourselves, period.
Exactly. It's about character, about the kind of people we want to be in the world. So, Elder Hanks starts with this question that Christ himself asks. What manner of men ought thee to be? And the answer? Well, it's not some long list of rules or a complicated formula. Christ says, even as I am. Just let that sink in for a second.
Powerful, right?
Yep.
It's not about checking boxes. It's about embodying a way of being. It's about becoming more like Christ in everything we do.
Okay, easier said than done, though, right? I mean, what does it actually look like to be like Christ in our everyday lives?
Well, that's what's so cool about this sermon. Elder Hanks breaks it down, gives us concrete examples of how Christ lived out this principle.
Like, take love, for instance. Christ's love for God wasn't just talk. It was a deep, unwavering commitment to following God's will, even when it meant incredible sacrifice, even suffering.
And that's the thing about real love, isn't it? It's not always easy or comfortable.
It's about putting something or someone else's needs before your own. And then there's courage. Christ wasn't afraid to speak truth to power, to challenge the status quo, even when it made people uncomfortable.
He stood up for what he believed in, even when it was risky.
And think about how tough that can be, even in our own lives. It's so much easier to stay silent, to avoid conflict, but true courage means speaking up for what's right, even when it's hard. And then there's compassion, something Christ just radiated.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Elder Hanks brings up those parables. The lost sheep, the lost coin, the prodigal son.
Sometimes we hear those stories so often we forget how radical they are. Each one of those parables shows us how much God values every single one of us, no matter how lost or far gone we might feel. And Christ, he embodied that.
He saw the worth in everyone, even the people society had cast aside, the ones considered unlovable.
Yeah, like Zacchaeus, the tax collector everyone hated, or the woman caught in adultery who was about to be stoned. Christ treated them with dignity, with respect. He offered them compassion and a chance to change their lives, not condemnation.
He met them right where they were, without judgment. And, that's something we can all learn from.
Absolutely. And one more thing that Elder Hanks talks about is prayer. Christ prayed constantly. It was like his lifeline to God. And it reminds us that we don't have to go through life's challenges alone. We can always turn to a higher power for guidance and strength.
Yeah.
But here's the catch with all of this. Admiring Christ's example from afar isn't enough. It's not just about intellectual agreement. It's about action. We are called to be his agents in the world, to actually embody his love, courage, and compassion in our daily lives. And that's where it gets really interesting, because it's like, okay, how do we actually do that? How do we take these lofty principles and make them real in a world that often feels messy and complicated? So we're called to be like Christ, right? To embody this incredible love, courage, and compassion. But like how? How do we actually do that in our everyday lives?
It can feel kind of overwhelming, right? Like, where do we even begin?
Yeah, right. It's easy to get stuck in the easier said than done place.
Totally. But Elder Hanks, he doesn't leave us hanging.
He tells this really poignant story about a little boy who'd lost his pet. The boy is just heartbroken, devastated, and he asks his mother to help find it.
Oh, that's rough.
So the mom, she's already looked everywhere, and she says to his son, "Honey, I've looked everywhere. What more can I do?"
Oh, that's a tough one. What'd the boy say?
And the little boy, he just looks at her with these big, tear-filled eyes and says, "You can cry with me."
Oh,
Just, wow.
That's like, it's so simple, but so profound.
Totally. And it really gets at something Elder Hanks emphasizes. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is just be present with someone in their pain.
Exactly. It's not always about fixing the problem or having all the answers. Sometimes it's about just listening, offering comfort without judgment, and letting someone know they're not alone.
100%. It reminds me of another story Elder Hanks tells about a 9-year-old girl who had already lived in 17 foster homes. 17.
Oh my gosh. That's heartbreaking.
Can you even imagine the instability, the longing for a place to belong? That's got to leave a mark. And it makes you think about all the people we encounter every day who might be carrying similar burdens,
Absolutely. The person next to you on the bus, the cashier at the grocery store, that coworker who seems a little withdrawn. We never really know what someone else is going through.
So true. And it's a reminder that even small acts of kindness, a listening ear, a genuine smile, it can make a world of difference. We all crave that feeling of being seen, heard, understood.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's like that saying, everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind, always.
Right. And Elder Hanks also talks about this remarkable woman, Sister Louise Lake. She's led this incredibly full life, but she's been using a wheelchair for over 25 years.
Wow. 25 years, that's incredible.
I know, right? And she has the most positive outlook on life. She's just so inspiring. And she talks about how she met this young boy at a rehabilitation center who had been blind for most of his life.
That's so tough, especially at a young age.
And he told her that for a long time, he thought being blind was the absolute worst thing that could happen to a person. Until he met Roy Campanella.
Wait, the baseball player?
Yeah, Roy Campanella, he was an amazing catcher, but then he was in a car accident and became paralyzed.
Oh, right. I remember hearing about that. Such a tragic story.
And this boy, who had faced so much darkness himself, he realized there was something even worse than his own physical limitations.
What's that?
He said, there is something worse than being blind or crippled, and that is to have people not understand you.
It's true, isn't it? There's something so isolating about feeling like nobody gets it, like nobody understands what you're going through.
Absolutely. And it challenges us to really look at how we treat others, especially those who are different from us, those who might be facing struggles we can't even see.
Yeah. Are we taking the time to understand their experiences, to walk a mile in their shoes? Or are we just making assumptions based on outward appearances? It's a question worth asking ourselves, for sure. It also makes me think about those times when we're the ones feeling lost and alone, wrestling with our own insecurities, our own failures. It's easy to fall into that trap of self-condemnation, that feeling of not being good enough.
Yeah, been there. It's so easy to get stuck in that cycle of guilt and shame.
Right. But Elder Hanks reminds us that Christ's message is one of hope, not condemnation.
It's about lifting each other up, not pushing each other down.
Exactly. And he points to these powerful words from the prophet Mormon, who, even while he was surrounded by so much wickedness and despair, wrote this to his son, Moroni. May Christ lift thee up, and may his sufferings and death, and his mercy and long-suffering, rest in your mind forever.
Powerful stuff. It's like a reminder that none of us are perfect, We all fall short. We all make mistakes. But Christ's sacrifice, his atonement, it's there to lift us up, not to keep us down.
And it's through him that we find forgiveness.
Right.
Forgiveness for ourselves and the ability to extend that same grace to others.
It's about recognizing that we're all in this together. We all need a little grace sometimes.
Totally.
Yeah.
And, it reminds me of this story Elder Hank shared about a pilot in Vietnam. The pilot had been through this harrowing experience, like a near-death experience, and yet, in the middle of it all, his biggest concern wasn't even for himself.
Wow. What was he worried about?
His son. He was worried about his son back home.
Oh, man. That's powerful.
Right. This pilot, who had every right to be terrified, to be focused on his own survival, was consumed with love and concern for his child. It just shows you the power of love, even in the darkest of times, to transcend our own fears and anxieties. It's about connection. It's about something bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely. And that kind of circles back to what we were talking about earlier, right? That deep human need to both give and receive love. It's often in those moments of vulnerability, when we allow ourselves to be truly seen and known, that we experience the most profound connections.
So true. And it all ties back to Elder Hanks's message. Real discipleship, true Christianity. It's not passive. It's not enough to just talk the talk or even just pray about it. We have to put our faith into action.
It's about walking the walk, right? Being the hands and feet of Christ in the world.
Exactly. And Elder Hanks, he doesn't mince words about this. He leaves us with this powerful reminder from the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
Do not suppose that this is all, for after ye have done all these things, if you turn away the needy and the naked, and visit not the sick and afflicted, and impart of your substance, if you have, to those who stand in need, I say unto you, if ye do not any of these things, behold, your prayer is vain, and availeth you nothing, and ye are as hypocrites who do deny the faith.
It's a powerful challenge for sure, but it's also incredibly motivating. It's like, okay, what can I do today to make a difference?
Right. It doesn't have to be some grand, heroic gesture. It's about the little things. A kind word to a stranger, a listening ear to a friend who's struggling, donating to a cause you believe in. Every little bit counts.
Love that. Small acts of love multiplied by millions of people can change the world.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's remember, we're all works in progress. None of us are going to be perfect at this, but we can keep striving, keep learning, keep showing up with love and compassion. And remember, the world needs your light. It needs your unique gifts and talents, so go out there and shine.
Beautifully said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. And remember, even small acts of kindness can make a big difference. We'll catch you next time.